But if you're like 21 years old and you say to me, should I get vaccinated? I go, no.
Spotify's Joe Rogan encouraged millions of his listeners to not take the coronavirus vaccine if you're young and healthy. A completely absurd view that doesn't at all take into account how vaccines actually work. Now I'm going to play this clip for you and give you my thoughts on Joe Rogan as a former Joe Rogan listener, and also get to some other reactions online as well. But first, here is this clip.
And people say, do you think it's safe to get vaccinated? I've said, yeah, I think for the most part it's safe to get vaccinated. I do. But if you're like 21 years old and you say to me, should I get vaccinated? I go, no. Are you healthy? Are you a healthy person? Like, look, don't do anything stupid, but you should take care of yourself. You should, if you're a healthy person and you're exercising all the time and you're young and you're eating well, and like, I don't think you need to worry about this.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you.
But there's a lot of jobs that will tell you you need to have this.
Well, that's what's starting to happen now.
People are worried about them doing it for their children. And we talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
There's that you might have to have your children vaccinated. And, you know, I can tell you as someone who's both my children got the virus, it was nothing. I mean, I hate to say that. If someone's children died from this, I'm very sorry that happened. I'm not in any way diminishing that, but I'm saying the personal experience that my children had with COVID was nothing. One of the kids had a headache. The other one didn't feel good for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Like maybe, I mean, not feel good. Like no big deal. No coughing.
Right.
No achy. No like in agony. There was none of that. It was very mild. It was akin to them getting a cold.
Yeah, and you can have this thing where it's like you were saying, this virtue signaling and this kind of like theatrical display of I get the vaccine, what a good person I am, I care about everyone. But you're like, look, my daughter's a lot younger than your kids, but I'm like, yeah, I'm not injecting my daughter with something to fucking virtue signal. Like, I'm not doing that.
Right.
If there's something that she's of no risk, statistically has no risk from, I'm sorry, I'm not taking any experiment on her in that. And that's my attitude toward it.
But it's amazing that that's controversial.
Yeah.
That even saying that I'm not going to inject my child with the vaccine is controversial.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Because, again, we are not talking about even the flu that we just found out killed 22,000 people last year. We're not talking about that.
Right.
We're talking about something that is not statistically dangerous for children. But yet people still want you to get your child vaccinated, which is crazy to me.
All right. There is a lot of misinformation in there that I will get to. First off, there is no vaccine for children. So I'm not even sure what that debate's about yet. There is no one's encouraging you to get the coronavirus vaccine for your child because there is no vaccine yet for children. And we already vaccinate children with other vaccines. I have a newborn. He was vaccinated recently. We vaccinate children. So this is not like an alien idea. We already do this. Not with the coronavirus vaccine, again, but the idea of rejecting vaccines for children as if it's some new idea, I don't even know what they're talking about. Like this show, I used to be an avid viewer of the Joe Rogan podcast. Back in 2013 to 2015, 16, I would watch pretty much every episode. And of course it was on, while I was doing other things like working out or cleaning the house. But I would put it on and he would have, great guests on. They'd have discussions. I wouldn't always agree with what was being said, but they were interesting discussions. But now it's gotten to the point where Rogan is so isolated. He is so out of touch. He's just become a right-wing reactionary. I mean, he had on the other day or a couple weeks ago, he had on Dan Crenshaw. And apparently Rogan, before Dan Crenshaw was on, had not heard of the fact that people making under $75K a year got stimulus checks. And this bothered Joe Rogan. So Progressive Voice did a video on this. You check out his video. It shows the clip. But if you go to the actual clip of the Joe Rogan podcast where he's discussing this with Dan Crenshaw, again, complaining about people making under $75K getting $1,200, the comments, his own fans turn on him. As Progressive Voice writes here. The comments on Rogan's own video were calling him out. I think it's like one of the only Rogan videos that has more down likes than likes, because it shows you how completely out of touch Rogan has become since the Spotify deal. The guy is worth estimated around $100 million now because of the Spotify deal, And here he was complaining that people making under 75K got a check of $1,200. How more out of touch can you possibly be? But this is what the podcast has turned into. Now, let's address some of the absurdity there. So in terms of herd immunity, experts estimate that in order to achieve herd immunity, society may need to get to a critical mass of 70% to 90% of people vaccinated. Again, this is why vaccinations aren't simply about protecting yourself, it's about protecting others as well. So in terms of children now, it's difficult to know the exact number of children who have been hospitalized because of COVID-19, but some 14,000 have been counted across just the 24 states that publicly released those numbers. The total for the U.S. would be far higher. More than 3,000 have developed a serious complication known as multisystem inflammatory syndrome in children, or MIS-C, in the weeks after having had COVID-19. The numbers of kids who've been hospitalized and died is significant and concerning. It may be getting worse as the virus evolves and the disease changes. A January study found that the rate of hospitalization among people under 19 had increased more than 8-fold over the course of the pandemic. The risk to teenagers and children remains significant, according to Jill Foster, a professor and pediatric infectious disease specialist at the University of Minnesota Medical School. And quote, "We're finding that teenagers are transmitting the virus at rates similar to adults. Younger children don't seem to transmit as well, possibly because their smaller lungs and airways spew smaller quantities of viral particles shorter distances. But Foster is concerned that many people don't appreciate that children getting sick can be quite a terrible experience, even if relatively few end up requiring hospitalization or dying." So the idea that there is no risk to your child from COVID-19 is just not true, especially as these new variants are increasing. Canada right now we are dominated by the variants of COVID-19, and more young people are ending up in the hospital and in the ICU because of them. They are more contagious, more dangerous, more deadly. Of course, coronavirus can impact anybody. It doesn't matter how healthy or how unhealthy you are. Of course, if you're unhealthy, you're more likely to get sick because of COVID-19. But even the healthiest people, as I'll get to right here, have had COVID-19 and have experienced serious symptoms because of it. So Jason Tatum, who is a basketball player, now needs an inhaler before games due to long-term COVID symptoms. So this is a guy that had COVID months ago. Very healthy, 23 years old, clearly in shape, plays in the NBA, and now he needs an inhaler before basketball games to actually play. So it's not even just about the short-term impact of having had COVID-19. It's also about the long-term impact. And again, even if you don't have it yourself, you can still, or have any symptoms from having it, you can still spread it to those in your life, friends and family, and then they can get sick and die because of it. Now, let me get to some reactions here. Hassan tweeted out, "While the rest of the world is waiting desperately for their vaccines so that they can return to normal life, we have spoiled weirdos telling people not to get vaccinated." Another reaction here, Skylar Record, saying if you're young and healthy, you get the vaccine to avoid spreading it to someone else who could die from it. It's been a year. Why is this still being debated? Absolutely. Wajat Ali saying, listen to Joe Rogan for MMA commentary and jokes. Do not listen to him and other celebrities for life-saving medical advice and recommendations during a deadly pandemic. The more you know. This is a guy who, sure, I enjoy his commentary on UFC fights. I maybe even laughed at a joke or two during his stand-up. But if it's not already obvious, do not take medical advice from Joe Rogan.